I would say probably about 17 or 18 languages to 18 degrees of significant degrees of conversational fluency.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Ari in Beijing. This is my first episode back from China. Have a really special guest with me today by the name of Jared Gimbel. You know, every week on this show, I try to bring you really interesting tips and tricks for becoming a polyglot, like a really awesome language learner. And so today we have a guy who, I guess I met you, a few months back at this point. But I think at some point I kind of asked you, what are you up to? And you just sort of mentioned like, oh yeah, I teach like 3 different Nordic languages, and then I also speak Hebrew, and then and by the way, like I also speak 13 different others. So Jared, if you wouldn't mind, can you just briefly introduce yourself and what you're all about?
Okay, so my name is Jared Gimbel, and my life story actually brings me to 5 different countries as a permanent resident, and many others as a journeyer. And when I was young, when I was about 3 years old, I was handed a big board book of maps of the world, and ever since then I was very enthused by how people ate, how people lived, how people spoke in a lot of these places. I was introduced to French as a child, in part because my father actually wanted to work in French West Africa. Okay. And also, Hebrew as a liturgical language since age 6. Okay. And then, of course, Spanish, Russian, ancient Greek in high school, also dead languages in college, and then I abandoned them in favor of living ones later on. I had dreams of being a polyglot ever since I would say probably about 8, 9. Yeah. But I genuinely thought, as many people did, that only a certain variety of brain would actually be suitable for it. And I think I saw your immersion video, you definitely know really what it's about. It's creating a temple to Cantonese, a temple to Norwegian within your space.
Yeah. A temple to Norwegian, I love that phrase.
And in my early 20s, when I read, thanks to folks like Benny Lewis, Ollie Richards, and I think I might have also come upon your videos before we actually met, believe it or not, that actually it was possible to learn a language to fluency.
For those of you who don't know, Jared has a video where he speaks 31 languages. I'll link to that in the comments, so if you want to hear him speak all these languages, go and check that video out because it's really awesome.
What's more, I'm actually for June and July, especially for the occasion of American Independence Day, I'm going to be making another video, this one with better sound quality, which will probably be longer.
Awesome, cool. So stay tuned and subscribe to this channel for that. So with all of these languages that you're learning and you have learned, how do you think about maintenance? How do you think about maintaining the languages that you've learned? What do your routines look like for that?
I have enlisted a total of 4 programs that I use on a daily basis, and I will definitely ensure that you will be able to link to them in the comments. One that I'm an self-professed addict to is Memrise.com. Often does offer you the possibility of writing something, or even posting a picture and writing something to ensure that you actually remember words. Right. And they also use the same spaced repetition formula that Anki also uses as well. And I think a lot of students of Asian languages in general do tend to be aware of these tools, and I'm very thankful for them as well. And what's more, another one, Closemaster, is apparently, it's...
For like sentences?
Yeah. And a 4th...
Well, could you just introduce closes for those who don't know?
Gladly. So, Closemaster works as following. So you will get a sentence of the language you are learning, and then that same sentence translated into your native language. And you, depending on whether you chose multiple choice or whether to write it in, you would have to pick the missing word in the sentences. And as a result, you get to genuinely see a lot of the context usage. And I think if you have a lot of passive understanding of grammar, but not a lot of active understanding of it, like this was a godsend for me for Icelandic. Which sometimes, I find myself at other times able to speak it, and then sometimes when I encounter native speakers, I got tongue-tied, and so...
Got it. So it improves your active understanding of
grammar. Duolingo, I would say, is dangerous in one regard, although it's helpful up until a point for grammar and accent. But if you get addicted to it and it prevents you from leaving the language learner material ghetto, be very much aware of that.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really grateful that I learned Scandinavian language to a significant degree before they were available on the app, because I think that actually getting to watch a lot of anime dubbed in these languages, as well as, of course, using radio and songs and what have you, was actually very
No,
helpful.
I totally agree. I think that Duolingo is a nice, fun introduction to a language, but it just isn't quite as robust as some of these other tools.
And one thing that I generally keep in mind concerning maintenance is that there is, and I learned this from the blog, All Japanese All the Time, there is the language learner material ghetto, and then your goal is to actually leave the language learner material ghetto.
Yeah.
And so as a result, for a language such as Swedish that I am actually teaching on a daily basis, I do not actually use a significant amount of word lists in Anki, Memrise, or what have you, because I know that by virtue of me watching a lot of videos that I can actually generally encounter the language in context.
Right.
One thing I also do for languages from the developed world, so obviously for Tokpizin this is sadly a non-option as of the time of filming. One of my favorite ways to rehearse languages, especially at the intermediate to advanced levels, is, you know what the Let's Play video is?
No, I don't.
And so it's a video where somebody or a group of people are actually playing a video game with consistent commentary. And I do this on some of my weekends when I need to unwind as a bit of a morning ritual sometimes, in no less than 9 different languages. And
Wait, you speak the language, or you're listening to the commentary?
I'm listening to it, and I also make sure to read various comments out loud, and also imitate certain things that the narrators say if I find them funny.
What do you do in your day job?
I teach languages to other people across varying levels, across various socioeconomic statuses, across age lines. My most popular languages at this point are Swedish and Finnish, and to some degree a lot of Americans, including myself, have Swedish ancestry. They've been curious about that, have often met Swedish tourists in this country, and some of them even dream of living in the country.
And what do you think the biggest mistakes that, like when you see your students start to pick up a language for the first time, whether it's their first language or their second language, what are the biggest mistakes that people typically encounter in language?
The one biggest issue that I've seen most consistently is the fact that a lot of educational systems have taken a lot of the fun out of learning and made it a fear of punishment instead. The fact is that when you can actually make trying again something fun, then apparently you get the odd result in having one of the hardest levels available in Super Mario Maker replayed by one person 30,000 times until completion. So if you can actually really make something enjoyable to try again, make sure that people's fear of mistakes is not gone completely, but just pushed out, then you can actually really get them trying again. And one phrase that I constantly use so much at language exchanges, where I often go to practice the Romance languages that I usually don't have the time to practice at home, because I'm practicing the cold languages in my living room.
The cold languages.
Or in Irish, the broken Irish is better than clever English. And this idea is that engaging with a language to any degree makes it worthwhile.
So Jared, what's your more general, or maybe do you have a more general philosophy on language learning? Like,
this ties into one of my other day jobs as a video game designer, and the video game that I'm actually currently designing is called Kaverini Nuke Adventures. And it's a video game set in Greenland, and it's like a 16-bit style role-playing game for an adventure game for phones that is scheduled for release later this year, or in early 2018. And so one thing is that I really want to get people learning a lot about other places, and I figured if I actually Trojan horsed them into actually getting to learn about, engage in these places as somewhere fun. Like, think about the sort of role-playing games or video games or any games in which certain worlds have been created, and then imagine how you engage with those. Now imagine a game in which that world is actually a real place somewhere. And so one thing that I genuinely do, and I think this is one thing a lot of language classes have not done, although thankfully there have been some exceptions, if you can actually make learning the language a source of something you really enjoy doing,
Yeah.
then you can actually turn to it again and again.
I think that's so important. Back to AJAD,
Yeah.
all Japanese all the time. For those of you who haven't heard of it, one of the things that he repeatedly emphasizes is the idea that you really need to become addicted to your language, and you really need to have fun in it for you to actually get good at it. And I think that's totally true. And you actually just mentioned, how a huge mistake that people make when they're starting to learn a language is like thinking of it as this dry academic subject, and doing workbook drills and for sure, like that's a really big mistake, right? Like you have to have fun in it. In my opinion, from day one, right?
You learn the grammar from the language. You don't learn the language from grammar.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So Jared, that was an awesome conversation, man. Do you have anything additional you want to say to the audience?
Okay, so
where can people find you?
My blog is World with Little Worlds, all one word, at WordPress.com.
Yep.
Its name actually is a homage to a Yiddish proverb that actually describes the world as a Welt mit Weltelech, which is a world with little worlds. In Yiddish, you can actually make any noun a little small thing by putting like an L at the end.
Yeah.
And so Yiddish uses this extraordinarily liberally. Dutch does as well, very interestingly, with their diminutive suffixes.
Yeah.
What's more is that I do have an extraordinary camera shyness, but once I'm over that, which will be one day, I'm actually going to be making YouTube videos in which not only be making more polyglot videos, but I'll also hopefully have a gaming channel. And one of my goals is to eventually start playing a lot of games with commentary in languages that I haven't really seen that for. One other extraordinary thing is that I also post a lot about endangered languages as well. And so I highly recommend, if you have any questions about any of that, because I know that sometimes it really seems at the dead end with Breton that I mentioned earlier. It's a little bit sometimes painful, because even if you turn on a Breton language station on account of laws in France that have a certain French language quota required for radio station, it's very frustrating to get a continuous stream of it. And so that's one thing to definitely keep in mind. And aside from that, I really want to let people know is that there is a lot of discouragement along the way, and I've certainly felt that. When I was abroad, sometimes I encountered some people that really felt as though they didn't really want me practicing their native language, and in a handful of cases were sometimes explicitly hostile to me. And this is me telling you, don't ever worry about these people. And for each one of these, there are thousands more that actively really want you to learn their language, and don't ever give up. And I'm always ready for encouragement if you need encouragement of any sorts. And check my video game cover, Nanook Adventures, when it comes out.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'll post the links to all those things on the comment section, and then, in the description. And also, guys, definitely check out his blog, because it's really amazing. He has a lot of really awesome content. So I'll be sure to link to that as well. I mean, I was just like reading through it, and just oh my god, just every post is just filled with all kinds of interesting, nuanced facts about crazy languages you've never heard of, and all this sort of stuff. But cool, thank you so much for the time, Jared. It was really amazing.
My pleasure.
And I think everybody's going to be going to get a lot of value out of your awesome language tips.
In Tok Pisin, and I like to say, have fun with this. You would say, "Bayu laikim tumas."
Bayu laikim tumas.
Wow, you're really good.
Right.
But it's interesting, in a place where apparently 800 plus languages are spoken, accent isn't very much an issue with Tok Pisin. And maybe I might actually be back singing some of songs by Daniel Dilip and Sean.
Oh my god,
Melanesian hits.
Definitely,
but,
whenever your next album comes out, you should,
I may have to get permission from those. And in the developing world, it's significantly difficult.
Awesome, dude. All right, peace out, guys. See y'all next week.